Welcome back everybody, I hope you're having a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day today because we're reading some more Malicious Compliance, and like it is every single episode, I'm sure it's going to be a whole bunch of fun, and also probably satisfying, and also a little bit infuriating, I'm sure. And let's get into it. Enjoy, guys. My boss insisted that I work in the office today. My boss and I had a disagreement about working from home this week. The office is in San Francisco. I live in the East Bay and I need to cross the Bay Bridge to get to work. We had an important presentation scheduled today. I wanted to do it virtual because the APEC meeting is in San Francisco this week and everything seems disrupted. President Biden and Chinese President Xi are here. It's a 2-hour commute on a typical day, and I told my boss it might not even be feasible to come in this week. He insisted I come in, so I said okay, but don't blame me if I get stuck in traffic. We had a pretty heated discussion about it. So today there's a huge backup on every freeway towards the Bay Bridge because protesters have chained themselves across all 5 lanes. The bridge is completely closed. Now the boss wants me to do the presentation virtual, but I told him I can't. I'm stuck in traffic. I can't operate my vehicle and do the presentation. You'll have to do it without me, but he isn't really qualified. Wow, so your boss didn't see that coming? That's so frustrating. Like, hey, I told you so. This is what I was trying to say was gonna happen. Yeah, that's super annoying. Like I said, this was gonna be an issue, and now it is. Story number 2 is called Take Notes of Everything You Say in the Meeting. Okay, but it'll get you fired. So this happened a few years ago, and I will be vague since I'm still not sure if the dust is fully settled from the fiasco. At my former company, I was the secretary for a small improvement team that would meet monthly to discuss issues with the company and brainstorm ways to fix them. Something you need to know about me is that I was given this role because people know that I'm meticulous at keeping records due to HR-related issues I had at a previous place of employment. I don't think that my boss realised that this careful record-keeping applied to her as well, especially when she appointed me to be secretary of this little committee. But I digress. I was a model employee, read award-winning, and went above and beyond what was asked, as were many others in my department, but were still having customer complaints and dealt with regular safety issues due to the company at large and no fault of our own. When we brought these concerns to our boss's attention, emails were left unread, and during in-person exchanges we were called whiny, needy, and were told that we needed to just deal with it. Whatever the issue, from items being stolen by customers to people being unhappy with the procedures the boss had set down for us to follow, it was always made to be somehow our fault. When we sought support from other departments, we were met with cold indifference since the boss was great to them and we must be exaggerating the things that she said to us. Well, during an improvement meeting at the end of the fiscal year, it all came to a head. Myself and a couple of my team members dug our heels in and we were insistent about the unresolved issues the boss refused to acknowledge, and she finally went off on us. She told us everyone was incompetent, didn't deserve our jobs, and that maybe customers would like us more if we were likable. When people pressed her on safety issues, she continued to reiterate that we just have to deal with it, and that if someone was gonna die, they already would have, right? I, as the secretary, did my duty and I took notes of all that happened over the course of that meeting. I usually did bullet points, but that night I was feeling a little bit more thorough, so I wrote down words. Every hateful comment, denial of accountability, and idle threat was recorded in black and white. Now, a second part of my job was to distribute the notes from the improvement meeting to the rest of the company. So, come the next morning, I ran about 100 copies of the transcript of the meeting and hand-delivered them to every single department in the building, and things blew up. People from other departments who had attended the meeting were able to verify that everything I'd typed up had really been said, and folks were mad, threatening to quit, refusing to do their normal duties, browsing Indeed during work, etc. My boss's boss, who worked at HQ, so I didn't get the opportunity to hand her a copy, got wind of these meetings minutes only a few hours after I'd handed them out and had an hour-long, off-the-record conversation with me about all the safety issues I'd documented, all the concerns I'd submitted to management in writing, and all the records I had regarding my boss's inaction. She was so grateful for the 100 pages of documentation I sent over, and thanked me for my time. The day after I unleashed Pandora's box, I put in my 2 weeks notice, took a new job, and I pieced out to greener pastures. At first it seemed like things were calming down after I left, but the following year the company did not renew my boss's contract. I still feel a bit bad because I wasn't trying to get her fired or ruin her life. I was just desperate for some accountability thrown her way to create some sort of positive change in the company, but at the end of the day I just did what she had asked me to do. Oh my god, that was incredible. Thank you for posting this. That was so fun to read. And yeah, don't feel bad about this. They had this coming. Their actions are what led to this. The top comment says, any boss shrugging off actual safety issues needs to be be fired, preferably from a cannon. People don't understand why you're leaving early. I was working for a smallish company, about 60 employees across several locations, IT support for both hardware, laptops and phones, and software. When I was hired just under 9 years ago, it was verbally agreed that instead of clocking any callouts as overtime, I would just take the time in lieu. Callouts were always minimal and there were never any issues with me taking the time here and there to make up for it. Any calls in the middle of the night were quickly resolved and I had no problem getting back to sleep. Appointments in the middle of the day were fine because of the additional hours from whenever. This worked well for almost my entire time there. I also always started early, just depending on when I left the house, got into the office and got my coffee. Could have been anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes because I would leave the house earlier so as to not wake the family if school was off that day. I didn't care at that point. It never bothered me. They got free time from me, but again, I did not care because honestly, what else did I have to do? It was a great job until it wasn't. One weekend I was working on some hardware maintenance, cleaning up wiring, Ethernet plugs, and installing a new UPS. That took me the better part of a Sunday to complete, 6 to 8 hours. This was understood, approved in advance, and appreciated. The following week I decided to start burning those extra hours up. I still came in early, as I had done for years, but I started leaving an hour early from my regular end time every day if nothing was going on. This is important. If something needed to be done, I got it done. I was reachable via email until early evening, and phone pretty much 24/7. This particular week was pretty slow, so I had nothing going on. I left an hour early for the first 4 days. On Friday, my boss comes up to me and gently says, "People notice that you've been leaving early this week. I'd like you to make sure to stay in your office until the scheduled end of day in case somebody needs you." I explained to him that I was burning up loo days, and he just reiterated that it looks bad to others. Seriously? You can't tell the others that I work my 40 hours a week, just not at the same time as them? Fine, cue the malicious compliance. I immediately submitted 4 hours of overtime for the hours that I didn't take in lieu. I still showed up at the office at whatever time I got there, but I didn't start any work until 8 a.m. If asked, I would say sure, 8 a.m. start time if I got called outside of office hours. Depending on how long I spent on the issue, I logged it as overtime. User calls me at 7 p.m. to ask a question. I answer him in 30 seconds, 1 hour of overtime. When my boss then started to ask, "How come you're submitting all this overtime?" I responded with a simple, "Some people don't understand or like me taking loo time, so I need to claim it as overtime since I'm at my desk from 8 until 4. Because I wasn't available at his beck and call, it ended up costing them more money. 95% of my job could be done from home because of full remote access, but that stupid old school mentality means that the people in the office need to see you at your desk all day. I left the company very shortly after that for a much better paying job with full work from home. Know your worth? Yeah, 100% like this comment says. Good for you. Doing things just because they look bad or look good is so dumb, and yet so many managers follow those rules because they're too stupid to measure results in any other way. I did the same at a past job, except the other way around. I'd come in 30 to 40 minutes late. Not a morning person, but in exchange I'd stay until 7 p.m. to finish all pending tasks and then lock up. Out of the blue, I was reprimanded because being late is bad for optics, and I needed to be in the office at the same time as everybody else. The shocked Pikachu face that my boss did when I returned the key and told them from today I'll be leaving at the same time as everybody else. Yeah, and like this comment says, I had to deal with people noticing that I came in later than them. Must be nice leaving earlier than I do. Our department shift times aren't the same. She apparently never noticed that the production department was still cranking away when she walked through on the way to her car, but Sean noticed us coming in when she'd been at her desk for an hour. Yeah, I can't even imagine how frustrating that'd be. And yeah, good on you for getting out of there, OP. The next one is called strong-arming me into a viewing. Fine, but you won't get inside the apartment. I'm renting an apartment from a company whose renting agents are somehow all unprofessional and late and kinda slow. Had a plethora of issues with them during the 10 months, but that's a story for another time. As I've told my landlord that I'll be moving out, they instructed their agents to find a new tenant for the apartment. The way it worked was the agent would email me with a proposed date and time, and I would confirm that I'll be in at that time. I've got a cat, so I insisted on being present during the viewings. The agents never had keys. I think that's because the landlord's office is at the other end of the city, and they can't be bothered to drive an extra hour each time there's a viewing to pick the keys up and then drop them off, so they relied on me to let them in each time. Apart from a couple of unannounced show-ups, followed by passive-aggressive emails about the messy property, all was well until about a week ago. The agent emails me saying they've got a viewing on the 13th. I respond saying I've got work that day and I won't be able to do the 13th. She simply replies, "If you won't be able to accommodate this request, I'll ask the landlord for a 24-hour notice of entry," which is legally enforceable. Yeah, okay, do that. The day comes and I get a call. We're downstairs. Yeah, congratulations, but I'm not home. I hope you brought keys this time. Man, I wish I could have seen her face then. We went back and forth a bit. She tried to threaten legal action, to which I replied that I don't object to them entering. They're unable to enter through their own negligence, and I have nothing to do with it. Naturally got an email from the landlord asking me to be more cooperative next time, which was ignored. God, I love these stories so much. You didn't do anything wrong. And like the top comment says, you were exactly as cooperative as you could be. You said that you weren't in. You said you couldn't be in. You agreed that with 24 hours notice, the landlord could require entry. That doesn't require you to be there to let them in. Yeah, why should it make your life harder because they can't organize? They just want you to do whatever they say, and good on you for not. The next one is called won't pay out my paid time off. Well, can I take paid time off and work? At my last job, I gave them notice, and I'd assumed that they'd cut me a check for the 55 hours of paid time off I had left over. But no, they said I would lose it if I don't use it. So I went ahead and used my paid time off for the last 55 hours I was scheduled to work, because I wasn't about to waste that. But then I remembered a few weeks back, I'd taken paid time off, but then I'd worked about 30 minutes into my paid time off. I ended up working time and a half, as with my paid time off plus 30 minutes of extra work. I enjoyed my co-workers. I wasn't working, so I sent an email to my manager. Hey Mark, I know we're a bit understaffed and I know I took paid time off already, but I wouldn't mind working anyway. Is that okay to work? Mark responds, yes, we'd be happy to have you. My hourly rate was $25 at that point. Time and a half put me at $37.50, which I was totally fine with earning. So come my second hour of Thursday, I'll be earning time and a half. So I worked, had fun. Come Monday after my last day, my old boss calls me and says, did you work 135 hours last pay period? No, I worked 80 hours and I used 55 hours of paid time off. Cause like your overtime pay put us over budget. I said, yeah, that sucks. You did say that I was good to work despite the fact I had scheduled paid time off, right? Him, I did? Yeah, thanks. He starts laughing. And yes, I got paid. The company now pays out paid time off when you quit because of me. In the end, they paid me $2,062 in overtime, plus the 80 hours I work earned me $2,000. So typically 80 hours of work would cost them $2,000, but because they wouldn't pay me out my paid time off, they ended up paying double, when they could have just cut me a check for $1,375 and saved $700. Essentially, in their effort to rip me off my benefit, I made them pay $700 for their grade. I made sure to get permission to come to work, despite the fact that I'd already scheduled my paid time off. FYI, previously in another interaction, I was told that once paid time off was approved, it can't be cancelled. Edit, in my state, not paying out for paid time off is perfectly legal and fine. In my company, paid time off is treated in terms of paid the same as hours worked. So in a bi-weekly pay period, I'm scheduled to work 80 hours, 40 hours a week. I noticed if overtime pay went above 40 hours, I still got paid time and a half. So here's the math. I was supposed to work 80 hours. I had 55 hours of paid time off to use. So I took all of that, which means I was going to work 25 hours and take off 55. Now, instead of taking those 55, I worked them, but I was still using my paid time off. So I got my $25 for my 80 hours, and then I got $37.50 for my 55. This resulted in a gross pay of $4,062. Had the company simply write me a check for my paid time off, that would have been $1,375, plus my 80 hours would have been $2,000 for a total of $3,375. So the company basically paid me $700 more than they could have because they were trying to be greedy. Wow, interesting. So they still got work out of you, but they paid a lot more for it. The next one is called Comply with Bridezilla or Leave. Okay, my friend Gemma tells me about how she had an entire group of bridesmaids leave a wedding after their friend dared them to. So this all happened a few weeks ago. A longtime friend of Gemma's group was getting married in another state, but the day of the wedding, she suddenly had a problem with one of the girls who wore glasses, which she didn't have an issue about beforehand. The glasses girl told her she wouldn't wear them during the vows and pictures, but the bridezilla didn't want her wearing them at all, and was screaming at her to not put them on for the rest of the day. Obviously, she couldn't do that since she needs to see. The argument got even more heated until bridezilla gave the ultimatum to take them off and keep them off, or leave. This is when Gemma and the other bridesmaids stepped in, told bridezilla that she was out of line, and that they'd all leave if she forced the girl with the glasses to leave. Bridezilla called their bluff, and being maids of honor, the bridesmaids left the wedding and decided to celebrate and eat at a restaurant before they head back home. Bridezilla called them several times after they left, telling them she didn't care about the glasses anymore and begged them to come back to the venue. But they not only refused, but they also chose to end the friendship with her altogether. Gemma said the wedding proceeded as follows, just minus the bridesmaids and a few awkward stares because everyone heard the bridezilla screaming from earlier. Gemma told me that the bridezilla has always been like this, throwing a tantrum when she doesn't get her way, and that the meltdown at the wedding was just the last straw for them. Personally, I think she's got a monk's patience if she put up with her for that long. wrong. Whoa, that's wild. At the wedding? Yeah, like this comment says, God damn, that's rough. I mean, it sounds like she deserved it, but imagine losing all your friends on a day where your life is already changing forever. Imagine the fiance being like, what the hell am I getting into? Yeah, that's unbelievable. And you're right, the husband would be like, oh, what? What's going on? But I mean, if they weren't already going to be friends with them, why did they have to do this at their wedding? But yeah, like that comment says, I'm sure they did deserve it, but that's so rough. The next one is called Tell Me to Work When I'm Not on the Clock and Just Happen to Be in the Building. How about instead I organise the staff into a low-key resistance that lasts for years after I leave? This will be a rather basic one, but it still warms my heart. I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss. Everyone got along great, except for one of the department heads. Let's call him B. For reasons unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to B, and in the wake, the majority of the staff quit within months, leaving us understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out, and I assumed that B would hire people to fill the empty positions. They didn't. We go from a 15-person trade shop down to a 5-person within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and there were many, was B's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and plan ahead. While I worked there, the 2 years with the boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I'd come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee, small talk with my co-workers, talk to my boss, but we never really started work until everyone's scheduled start time. When B took over, the moment you stepped into the stop, B immediately started to back orders at you regardless if you were in the building 15 or 20 minutes early, mostly because B was in a rush to get something done they just remembered, when I, the now most senior person left at the shop from the old regime, would point out that we technically weren't on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes, and I want to make some coffee. B would just snap at you, telling you to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So I started to wait in my car, bring in my coffee from home, and I'd only walk in the door as the last minute was changing. I was technically never late to work, and I was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if B caught on, but the rest of my staff did and followed suit, since I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my co-workers would still often show up early to work, but all waited in the vehicles. At some point, one of them had a minivan and we all partied in there, and then go in as a group. Anytime a new person joined, because someone walked off, we would also warn them of what had happened. It's been several years since I worked there. I don't know any of the current staff besides B. I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time that the shop would open, and I looked over into the parking lot in front of the shop. Like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. I may not work there, but it's nice to see that my resistance does still exist. Edit, updated B's name. Edit number 2, for those asking why I didn't just clock in early and get overtime, it's simply because I didn't want to. 1, I deliberately arrived to work early so that I can get into the correct headspace to deal with B, and I want to hang out with the staff for a few minutes before having to deal with the daily crap show, and at that point I'd put an end to the 10 to 11 hour workdays that I was putting in to deal with cleaning up B's mess. I was willing to help out since I felt bad that half of the staff left, and they just needed the help. I also like money, but after 6+ months of the same mistake happening with no effort on B's part to even acknowledge there were issues, I burned out. So I informed B that I was only working 8-hour days, I will not come in early or stay late. I only lasted another few months before I found another shop. I'm a vindictive person, and at that point I was enjoying watching the world burn around B. That's so funny that the employees still do this, and yeah, that was so fun to read, and I feel like that's enough for today. It's such a beautiful subreddit, but let's read something wholesome. Grandparents forced into their profession, parents forced into their profession, my awesome parents letting me take control of my life. The cycle ends here. Yeah, 100%, and that's such a beautiful thing, and also beautiful game as well. My dad is recovering from an operation. Mum went out and left the door slightly ajar. My parents do not have a cat. Oh, that's so cute. They're getting cuddles from a cat, and they don't even have a cat. That's amazing. You are the chosen one. For real, that's so beautiful, and I hope they fully recovered from their operation. With the help of a beautiful cat, you definitely will. This is Daisy and Luna. Daisy doesn't like car rides, so Luna comforts her until they both fall asleep. So heartwarming. 13 out of 10 for each. Oh, that's so sweet. Really good wholesome memes today. That's so cute. Thank you for posting that. And on that beautiful note, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did and you want to see more episodes like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to Beefy Cow. I love your channel. I always start my morning with these videos, and a new video is always conveniently out right when I check your channel. Oh, thank you, Beefy Cow. I really appreciate the support, and I'm glad you start the day with the episodes. Like some of the stuff that we read, I don't know if it's the best way to start your day, but it also definitely isn't the worst. worst. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm so glad you enjoy the episodes. I'll make sure to have a brand new fun episode out tomorrow for you, and I hope to see you then. Make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!